Rain drizzled over the marble steps of the Liberty Honors Gala in Washington, D.C. Decorated generals, CEOs, and influencers stepped out of sleek black cars under umbrellas. Among them rolled a weathered wheelchair, its occupant even more so. Ethan Rowe, a 52-year-old retired Marine sergeant, clutched a faded invitation. His right leg was gone. His calloused hands trembled as he tried to hold the letter steady. Beside him, his daughter Mia walked nervously, her heels clicking on the pavement. "Dad, you sure you want to do this?" she asked. Ethan gave her a half-smile. "I fought for this country, Mia. I just want to stand in that hall one last time, even if I can't stand." They approached the entrance, where a towering security guard glanced at Ethan's uniform jacket and scoffed. "This is a private event," he said gruffly. Ethan held up the invitation. "I was personally invited." The guard examined it. "This is for veterans of distinction. We have standards." Mia's face flushed. "Are you kidding? He's a Purple Heart recipient." The guard didn't budge. "Not tonight." Ethan swallowed his pride. "It's fine, Mia," he whispered. "Let's just go." But as he turned his wheelchair away, a sleek black SUV pulled up. Doors opened, cameras flashed, Secret Service stepped out, and then came a familiar voice. "What seems to be the problem here?" Mia froze. Ethan turned slowly. It was Donald Trump walking directly toward them. The guard stiffened. Guests turned, photographers scrambled. Trump looked down at Ethan and said, "I know you." Ethan blinked. "Sir? You're Sergeant Ethan Rowe, Fallujah. You saved 2 medics when your convoy was hit. I read about you." Ethan was speechless. Mia whispered, "Dad, how does he—" Trump turned to the guard. "You denied him entry?" The guard stammered, "Mr. President, he wasn't on the list." Trump raised a hand. "He's more worthy than half the list. You don't turn away a man who left a part of himself for this country." Mia's eyes welled up. Trump bent to eye level with Ethan. "Would you allow me the honor of escorting you in?" The crowd fell silent. Even the press lowered their cameras in respect. Ethan nodded slowly, still unsure if he was dreaming. Trump turned to Mia. "Would you mind walking with us?" And just like that, the red carpet became more than ceremony. It became a moment of restoration. Trump, Ethan, and Mia moved forward, leaving whispers and stunned silence behind. But inside the glittering ballroom, something shifted. Chandeliers sparkled, uniforms gleamed, but Ethan's eyes locked on one face, Colonel Darren Mills. His breath caught. Trump noticed. "You okay, Sergeant?" Ethan didn't respond. His gaze stayed fixed. The memories rushed back. The desert, the betrayal. Mills had once left Ethan's unit behind during an ambush, calling it a strategic delay. 2 Marines died. "He shouldn't be here," Ethan muttered. Mia looked at him, alarmed. "Who is he?" "Someone who cost lives," Ethan replied. Trump's tone shifted. "Want me to handle this?" Ethan shook his head. "No, I didn't come here to pick a fight. I just didn't expect to see him." Trump nodded, respecting Ethan's restraint. But fate had other plans. Mills noticed Ethan and walked over. "Ethan Rowe?" he said, almost cheerfully. "You made it." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Surprised I survived?" Mills ignored the jab. "Time heals wounds, right?" "Not when they're buried under medals you didn't earn," Ethan said coldly. Conversations nearby grew quiet. Trump leaned in. "This isn't the place, but it's your call." Ethan looked away. "Not tonight." Mills shrugged and walked off. Mia touched her father's shoulder. "Let's focus on the people who actually care." Trump gave a soft smile. "And that starts with dinner." But none of them knew a surprise twist was coming. Trump's speech, written the night before, would soon spotlight Ethan in a way that would leave the entire ballroom on its feet. Plates clinked, wine glasses shimmered, and quiet conversations filled the room. The ballroom fell quiet as a pianist played softly in the background. The master of ceremonies tapped his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump." Applause thundered as Trump approached the podium, his presence commanding, but his voice held an unexpected calm. "Thank you," he began. "Tonight isn't about me. It's about those who gave everything." He paused, scanning the crowd. "I had a different speech prepared about policies, numbers, national pride, but last night I found an old news clipping in a box I hadn't opened in years." The room grew even stiller. It told the story of Marine Sergeant Ethan Rowe. When a roadside bomb struck his unit, he didn't crawl to safety. He crawled toward the screams of his medics. He saved 2 men and lost his leg doing it. Ethan's heart pounded. Mia gasped. Whispers swept through the room. Trump looked out over the audience. "That kind of sacrifice, you can't measure it in medals or speeches. That is America." Trump turned toward Ethan and said, "And tonight that man was told he didn't belong here. Let me be clear. If Ethan Rowe isn't welcome at a body gala honoring veterans, then this gala means nothing." Thunderous applause erupted. Ethan stared down, overwhelmed. He had arrived expecting rejection. Now he was being honored by a former president. Mia reached for his hand. Trump continued, "Some doors only open when the right people stand up. Tonight, let's keep those doors open for good." The crowd rose to their feet, but not everyone applauded. Colonel Mills quietly exited, his face pale. As the applause faded, guests began approaching Ethan. An admiral saluted, a young cadet asked for a photo, and a senator knelt beside his wheelchair to thank him for his service. Ethan sat speechless. He hadn't felt this scene in years. Trump returned to the table, extended his hand, and said, "Sergeant, I meant every word." Ethan shook it firmly, eyes glossy. "Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't expect any of this." Trump leaned in and said quietly, "That's what makes it matter." Mia smiled through her tears. "Dad, you finally got seen." Ethan chuckled, softly. "Feels strange, but good." Just then, a teenage boy approached wearing a small navy pin and holding a crumpled drawing. "Are you a real hero?" he asked. Ethan hesitated. "No, son. I just did what I had to." The boy handed him the drawing. It showed a soldier helping others, a glowing heart at the center. "My grandpa was in the Marines," the boy said. "He told me heroes don't say they're heroes, so I think you are." Ethan stared at the paper, his voice caught. Trump gently patted the boy's head. "Smart kid." The evening had already changed Ethan's life, but the next moment took it further. A woman stepped onto the stage. "I'd like to sing a song my father loved before he passed. This is for Sergeant Ethan Rowe." As her haunting version of God Bless America filled the hall, Ethan lowered his head, letting the moment wash over him. He didn't need medals. He had found dignity. As the song ended, the crowd's applause was raw, emotional. Mia wiped her eyes. "Dad, this night feels unreal." Ethan, holding the drawing close, whispered, "It's more than I ever imagined, and I've imagined a lot lying in hospital beds." Just then, a sharply dressed man approached. "Mr. Rowe, the president would like a private word backstage. Are you able to join him?" Mia glanced nervously at her dad. Ethan gave a slow nod. "Of course." They followed the agent through a velvet-draped corridor into a quiet lounge behind the ballroom. Trump stood alone by a fireplace, hands clasped behind his back. "Sergeant," he said, turning to face them, "I want to tell you something I don't say often." Ethan wheeled forward. "Yes, sir?" Trump took a steady breath. "I've met billionaires and kings, but it's people like you who carry the weight of this country. And tonight you were treated like you didn't matter. That ends now." Ethan frowned. "You've already done more than enough, sir." Trump shook his head. "I want to do more." He handed Ethan an envelope. "Read it when you get home. It's not charity, just something I believe you've earned." Mia took the envelope. "What is it?" Trump gave a small wink. "Let's just say, America owes him more than a thank you." Before Ethan could respond, Trump turned to Mia. "And thank you for not giving up on your father." She smiled, stunned. As they returned to the ballroom, Ethan clutched the envelope. Feeling this night was more than a tribute, it was a turning point. Later, back in their modest apartment, Mia placed the envelope on the table. Ethan stared at it like it might explode. "You going to open it?" she asked. He hesitated, fingers shaking. "I'm almost afraid to." She nudged him. "Open it, Dad." Slowly, he peeled it open and pulled out a thick letterhead bearing the presidential seal. Beneath it was a handwritten note. "Sergeant Rowe, this is not a gift. This is America remembering what it owes you. Donald J. Trump." Beneath the letter was a deed, a paid-off mortgage deed. Mia gasped. "Dad, it's the house. He bought it outright." Ethan blinked, stunned. They'd been drowning in medical debt. The bank had been just weeks away from seizing everything. At home, Ethan whispered, "Why would he do this?" Mia hugged him tightly. "Because he saw what others refused to." Ethan sank into his chair, overwhelmed. His whole life he'd fought for others, on the battlefield, in hospitals, and in silence. Now someone was fighting for him. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Mia opened it to find a local journalist. "Mr. Rowe, we heard what happened tonight. Do you have a comment?" Ethan rolled to the door and said firmly to the camera, "Don't measure people by how they walk. Measure them by how far they carried others." By morning, Ethan's story went viral, with headlines reading, "Veteran denied at gala rescued by Trump. Former president honors forgotten hero." Social media exploded with praise as people across the country posted selfies in military hats using hashtags like Honor Ethan and Our Veterans First. But not everyone applauded. Talk show panels ignited with heated debates. Some called Trump's actions political theater, while others mocked Ethan as a pawn. One anchor sneered, saying Ethan should have stood up for himself instead of waiting for Trump. Ethan watched quietly while Mia was furious. "They don't know you, Dad." Ethan nodded. "They don't need to, but they're missing the point." He wheeled to the window, staring out at the quiet street. "This isn't about me. It's about every vet who doesn't get a second chance." He turned to Mia. "Maybe it's time I do something." Mia looked puzzled. "Like what?" Ethan smiled faintly and pulled out an old notebook labeled Vet Speak, a project he'd abandoned years ago. "I think it's time to revive this." Mia grinned. "We'll need a good website." Ethan chuckled. "Good thing my daughter's a tech genius." And so began a new mission, not with a rifle, but with a pen. The dusty notebook, Vet Speak, was Ethan's forgotten dream, a space where veterans could share their raw, unfiltered stories. Now, with national attention on him, he knew the time was right. Mia built a simple website. "It doesn't need to be flashy," she said, "just honest like you." They launched quietly, expecting little, but within hours emails poured in. A Vietnam vet wrote, "I haven't spoken to anyone about my past in 40 years. Your story made me feel brave enough to try." A young female Marine wrote, "They told me to stay quiet. Your courage gave me a voice." Ethan scrolled through the submissions, tears forming. "It's like I opened a door," he whispered. Mia smiled. "No, Dad, you kicked it open." Local reporters picked up the story, then national media followed. Suddenly, vetspeak.org became a movement. Church groups, schools, and small town mayors used it to honor and understand local veterans. What started as a single voice became a choir. Ethan no longer felt like a forgotten soldier. He felt like a bridge. But there was still one person he hadn't heard from: the security guard. Something inside him said the chapter wasn't closed yet. A week later, there was a knock at the door. Mia answered and froze. "Dad, it's him." The guard from the gala stood awkwardly outside, hat in hand. Ethan wheeled to the door. "You look nervous." The man nodded. "I came to apologize. I was just doing my job." Ethan studied him. "No, you weren't. But I get it. The world tells us who matters and who doesn't. You just followed the rules." The guard looked shamed. "I've had nightmares since I saw your story. I didn't know." Ethan raised a hand. Don't explain. Just tell me one thing. If another vet in a wheelchair shows up next time, what will you do? The guard stood straighter. I'll stand aside and salute. Ethan smiled. Then, apology accepted. The man handed Ethan a coin. My dad's challenge coin. He would have wanted you to have it. Ethan turned the coin over. Honor before rules, etched into it. For the first time, Ethan saw not just guilt, but growth, and that mattered more than punishment. Vet Speak's momentum grew beyond Ethan's dreams. One morning, Mia's phone rang. She looked puzzled. Dad, it's a Washington area code. Ethan answered the phone. Hello? A firm voice replied. Sergeant Rowe, this is General Malcolm from the Pentagon. We've been following your platform. Would you be interested in advising on a national veterans initiative? Ethan was stunned. I'm just a guy in a wheelchair with a website. The general chuckled. Exactly. That's why we need you. By the end of the week, Ethan was flown to D.C. for a meeting with military leaders. He shared stories from Vet Speak about veterans struggling with homelessness, unemployment, and hopelessness. The room grew silent. A colonel wiped his eyes. You've reminded us of what we've ignored, one official admitted. Ethan left not with a medal, but a promise that these stories would no longer go unheard. Back home, he found a voicemail from Trump. Ethan, keep pushing. Change doesn't come from the top. It starts in rooms like the one you just left. Proud of you. That evening, Mia sat on the porch holding an envelope. Ethan noticed and asked, Everything okay? She handed it to him. It's for you, but I wrote it before the gala when I thought you'd never smile again. Ethan opened it. It read, Dear Dad, if you're reading, maybe something finally changed. I wrote this because I wanted you to remember who you are, even when the world forgets. You're my hero, not just for fighting in war, but for never giving up when no one was watching. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. You taught me resilience, and now the world is finally seeing what I've always known. He looked at Mia. You saved me twice, you know, he whispered. Mia squeezed his hand, just returning the favor. Soon after, a local school invited Ethan to speak at their Veterans Day event. He hesitated. What if they see me as broken? Mia smiled. Then show them what real strength looks like. In the gym, whispers spread. Kids had seen him, on the news. Ethan wheeled onto the stage. I used to think honor came from medals, he said, but I've learned it comes from the moments you keep going even when no one notices. A child raised her hand and asked, What hurt more, being shot or being ignored? The room fell silent. Ethan smiled sadly. Being forgotten. Gasps echoed as teachers wiped away tears. That day, dozens of thank you cards flooded local veterans, Ethan's words sparking a wave of gratitude. One afternoon, a package arrived with no return address. Ethan opened it to find a folded flag, an old photo of a Navy squad, and a note. You don't know me, but my brother was one of the men you saved in that 2005 ambush. He never forgot you. He passed last month, and this flag draped his coffin. He wanted you to have it. Ethan sat back, stunned. I remember that night, he whispered. Mia watched him quietly, amazed. That's your legacy, Dad. Quiet, buried in others' lives, but alive. Ethan placed the flag beside his medals, feeling whole for the first time. Months later, another gala invite arrived, this one with gold trim and a handwritten note. From the committee chair, You were the heart of last year's event. This year you're our honored guest. Ethan looked at Mia. You think I should go? She grinned. Let's make a proper entrance. When he arrived in his dress blues, polished boots resting by his chair, the entire hall rose to their feet in a standing ovation. No questions asked. This time, the red carpet welcomed him, no guards blocking his path. After the gala, Ethan was offered a permanent spot on the Veterans Advisory Council. He laughed. Is that the group I used to yell at on TV? They nodded. That's exactly why we want you. At his first meeting, Ethan spoke with firm purpose. No more silence, no more waiting for cameras. We need to reach the forgotten before the headlines do. They listened, and policies began to change. Hospitals added mental health days. Grants increased for vets starting businesses. Ethan's fight was making a difference without firing a single shot. Meanwhile, Mia pursued her own dream, launching a podcast called My Hero's Chair, interviewing children of veterans about their unseen strength. It went viral. People care about those standing behind the soldiers too, she told Ethan. A major network soon offered her a show, and at the first taping, her guest of honor was Ethan. "Live on air," she said. "Dad, you weren't just my hero. You gave others permission to be heroes too." Ethan's eyes filled with pride. "Looks like we're both veterans." One rainy evening, there was a knock at the door. A young man, soaked and trembling, said, "I'm sorry, I saw your story. I'm a Marine, been living in my truck, didn't know where else to go." Ethan opened the door wider. "You came to the right place." They gave him food, dry clothes, and a couch. That night, as the Marine slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, Ethan whispered, "Full circle, from being turned away to welcoming others in." Exactly 1 year after the original gala, a limousine pulled up to Ethan's home. Trump stepped out. "Figured I'd drop in on an old soldier." Ethan grinned. "Thought you only visited billionaires." Trump chuckled. "You're richer than most of them." They talked for hours about veterans, politics, and America. Before leaving, Trump looked Ethan in the eye. "You reminded this country what it forgot. Honor isn't about uniforms. It's about people." Ethan saluted. "Thank you, sir, for seeing me." Trump returned the salute with rare humility. "I didn't just see you, Ethan. I learned from you." Years passed. VetSpeak grew into a national nonprofit. Mia's show became a cultural phenomenon, and Ethan became a symbol, not of war, but of redemption. At his 70th birthday, veterans from all eras gathered and raised a glass to the man who taught them no door should ever be closed to those who served. Ethan stood, cane in hand, smiling. "I was once denied entry," he said. "But what I found was far greater than a ballroom. I found a country willing to remember." With that, he saluted the crowd, his final, powerful gesture, a salute not just to the past but to a future built on honor.